Good evening and afternoon to everyone in SFL Nation. I am Andy Hamilton. As always, I have Mighty with me here for the SFL Podcast, and we have two very special guests with us. We'll start at the top of the food chain. We got the commissioner himself, relaxed commish today. Cam is on the horn with us. Cam, how you doing, man?
I'll start with James. Why are you going to introduce me? Give me a break. Give me a break. I just got here. Hey, everybody.
Well, Cam is here, whether he's wanting to go first or last. And then we have James Richards back with us, back by popular demand. James, how you doing?
I'm good. Thanks everybody for wanting me back. I enjoy coming on these things.
Well, we got a good crew. Mighty is here. Mighty, how you doing, man? I didn't let you talk.
I am good, and I'm just happy. There's a week. There's 1 day away from hopefully getting some redemption from that debacle with the color rush last Sunday. That was just that I want that taste out of my mouth like ASAP.
Well, we are 1 day away, from quite a few games, and we'll get into that later. But we got to start, as always, going through what happened last week, and then we can move towards what happens tomorrow. Mighty, do you have a particular game you want to start with, or do you want me to pull one out of the hat?
Let's start with the Gladiators, because last week they put up a very nice performance. It was a nice tight game at halftime, and then it's like the wheels fell off a little bit. So let's touch on that a little bit.
Sure. Cleveland headed to St. Louis to take on the Gladiators in the opening game of the week. 34-20, Mac Wavy Jr. goes into St. Louis and takes down the Gladiator defense by only 14 points. St. Louis showing a lot of fight and actually looked pretty good. Mighty, you and I were talking with James a little bit before the broadcast started about how good they looked. Mighty, what specifically do you think the Gladiators did well this week?
They looked like they were ready. They were prepared. They had their ducks in a row, and they knew they want to get their running game going, and they also want to get Elijah Swain involved in the passing game for chunk plays, and they did exactly that. But it looked like after halftime they just got away from that, and that's where Cleveland started to take away everything else, and in doing so, Cleveland started pulling away, slowly but surely, and then next thing you know, the game was over, and St. Louis hadn't scored any points in the second half.
James, you obviously had some emotional ties to this game. How did you think St. Louis played, and what did Cleveland do that was able to get them the win this week?
Yeah, so the biggest thing that caught us off guard and just something that we weren't prepared for was David Overstreet gashing us up the middle. We knew they were going to throw the ball. We were definitely prepared for that. They jumped out to an early lead. We came back, we go into the second quarter down 14-7. Defense kind of rallies, ties up Mac Wavy and David Overstreet a little bit. And then, we put up 13 points and we take the lead into the halftime. And then, after that, in the second half, injuries started piling up. We started turning the ball over. We couldn't stop. David Overstreet wasn't overly effective. He was effective with just the right amount. Like, every drive could be slightly or even a little bit more extended. They'd be in like a 3rd and 4, and Overstreet would get that 4 yards or some, just something like that. And we just couldn't stop him from taking the jabs. And it was the jabs that killed us. It wasn't the haymakers. It was the jabs. And so, going into that game, that was the biggest shock, was just how effective Overstreet actually was.
Yeah, he had 83 yards, which is down to 3 yards a carry on 28 carries and 1 rushing touchdown. So not overly, the stat line doesn't blow you out of the water, but like you said, I think Overstreet was able to get those yards that they needed, and Mac Wavy Jr., for all intents and purposes, threw the doors off you guys. 3 touchdowns. The 3 interceptions, though, I thought was good work by your defense to kind of even that number out, and that's what you want from the defense. Cam, what did you think when you took a look at this game and how St. Louis played and how Cleveland has put 2 wins together?
Well, I thought the difference in this game was the other running back. When you look at St. Louis's stat line, 219 of their 284 passing yards went to their stars. 65 went to generic receivers. That's pretty good. If I can get 65 yards out of my generic wideouts or reserve wideouts or whatever you want to call them, that is a good day. And I think Ethan Alexander had a good day. But when you're relying on your backfield to carry some weight, Evan Murs, 70 yards on 22 carries, didn't get it done. And it turns out that was his last game in a Gladiator uniform. Now Adam Fennell will come in and try to make his mark. I think St. Louis is showing that despite a lack of weaponry in the receiving core, they're still coached well enough that they can move the ball and that they can have a good passing attack. So now they just have to combine that good passing attack with a heavy and powerful ground game, and they do that. St. Louis is on their way. So I think it's to me, it was just, Cleveland figured out 1 week sooner who they are. That's, a heavy downfield threat passing team with Overstreet getting carries. He may not be getting as many yards as the other backs in the rest of the league, but they're going to give a heavy dose of him. And I think they just kind of figured it out just 1 week before St. Louis did, but you can see St. Louis and what they're trying to do and how they're trying to execute.
Yeah, talk about a man with a rushing performance. Let's move on to Tallahassee and Carolina. J. Calvin Kim, 259 yards on 23 carries is 11.3 for the average. Only 6 incompletions for Christensen, one of which was an interception. So 5 incompletions for him as the Tallahassee Pride beat the Carolina Skyhawks in Carolina 38-27. The Pride have been rolling this season, and Christensen is a big part of that. But it was J. Calvin Kim's night. James, we'll start with you. What out of that running game kind of do you think blew the doors off of Carolina? And are the Skyhawks going to be able to piece together some better games? Because they got decently close in this one.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, I think the running game's caught everybody by surprise. We just don't expect J. Calvin Kim to rush for 259 yards, with an 11 yard per carry average. We usually saw him in, swings to the flats, quick hit plays to the outside. This year, he's kind of doing a little bit of everything, catching the ball, running the ball, and he's just really dominating people. And it's allowing Christensen to just be a really effective quarterback. I think that Tallahassee is going to continue to keep on this. Like, I don't really see anybody in our division who can not only shut down the passing game, but shut down J. Calvin Kim. Plus, I don't really see many people being able to break their defense. They've got a really good build for that. And I think for Carolina, they started out really strong this year, and now they're kind of regressing a little bit. And so, James, they've got some work to do, but I think James has proven that he's a veteran coach and owner, and I think they'll get it turned around eventually.
Cam, you and I have talked before in sometimes the broadcast meetings about how Carolina looked really strong in the first 2 weeks, and then these last 2 weeks, we've kind of seen them kind of regress a little bit. And how that's a new coaching staff. How do you think that has played out into the way that their season's going? And do you think this coming week might be the one that they get to turn it around?
Yeah, I think Carolina playing Chicago, playing Shan Varner, who sort of was coaching them up briefly, or coaching that staff up briefly when he left to Chicago. I think this is Carolina's good opportunity to possibly get inside Varner's head a little bit and try to steal one against a Chicago team that has also kind of regressed over the last couple of weeks. Not to say that Chicago's a bad team, but that performance at Baltimore definitely left a lot to be desired. Whether or not Carolina can get it to turn around, sooner rather than later is an unknown. But I tell you what's not an unknown. This is my stat of the week. Like, it is. This stat is so bonkers. I can't even comprehend what I'm looking at. All right. I'm making a statement right now on the air that J. Calvin Kim by the time his career is done, is going to be the greatest running back in league history. Here's why. Here's why. He has 38 touchdowns on 489 carries. Elliott Snyder, a well-renowned running back that had almost a 5,000-yard career, had 40 touchdowns. It took him exactly 500 more carries to get 2 more touchdowns than J. Calvin Kim. It is absurd how many times this guy scores. He's electric. And I think that the team, at least right now, the way it's going, it's only week 5, but either the team that can run for 200 yards a game or the team that actually has a run defense and knows how to stop the run is going to win the championship, because these running backs are they're going off. They're going off this year. It's out of control.
Yeah, Mighty, you and I were talking a little bit before the broadcast about this Carolina team, and Cam just mentioned the running backs are going off for teams. Johnny English hasn't been able to really get much going for Carolina in terms of their offense, but you talked a little bit about the gold star on the defensive side for Carolina and the defensive end, Phil Hall. Do you think his production needs to come up to kind of help take some of the pressure off of the Carolina secondary in these games? Or how do you think the Carolina team might be able to make that defense work, like Cam was talking about, in order to turn their season around?
Well, speaking of running backs, we'll get to Phil Hall in a second. Speaking of running backs, what is up with Johnny English? He doesn't look like his productive self. He feels neutered. If it's not for an injury in one game and in another game, he's trying to, play like a scat back, spinning and juking, as opposed to, dropping his head down and running through defenders like we've known, Johnny English to do, old English. He's not playing like old English right now. And that might be one of the reasons why their offense has been a little helter-skelter, a little hit and miss. And him not being able to be effective, trying to keep the defense fresh, maybe that's one of the reasons why their defensive end can't, be as productive as necessary come those late downs, third down. Maybe, a team wants to go for it on fourth down. For him to have fresh legs and dominate his matchup like he's supposed to, tired legs, man. Tired legs will sap the strength. And, if you don't have legs in football, you don't have much of anything. So, one might be directly affecting the other. So, hopefully Carolina gets a recipe as to how to, use this new version of Johnny English a little better and allow their defensive end to be fresh, when in turn will help the secondary be better at what they do best, which is to cover receivers. So we'll see how this goes this week.
Well, you talked about English there and how his running game is affecting, Carolina's season. Let's go to a team and a game where one team has no rushing attack and the other team has 2 rushers on their offensive side. We'll go to Dallas and San Antonio as a battle in Texas went down in San Antonio last week. Dallas comes out on top of the Vaqueros 30-20. So Stephen Mullinex gets another win. Shabazz Synergy, 397 yards, 2 touchdowns, 4 picks though. But he did add a rushing touchdown on 10 carries with a 2.8-yard average. And then you flip over to San Antonio. Langdon threw the ball 38 times and had 6 interceptions. Mighty, I know you got Dallas this week, so you probably have watched this game by this point, I would hope. Talk to me a little bit about not only what Dallas is doing to start stringing wins together as they have, but what San Antonio is doing wrong and what they would need to look to fix on tomorrow night's game against Vancouver.
Well, in watching this game, I watched it like 3 times. This game reminded me of the other Texas showdown that happened between San Antonio and Houston, where San Antonio looked to be in the game. The game was a tight game, but every time they got to that 20-yard line, it looked like there was a force field and just Langdon couldn't penetrate it. He was throwing it to, players of a different colored jersey. And he did that 6 times last week, and that's how it felt. So they were moving the ball, their running game has been a force all season. and I believe it'll be a force all season long. You know, the state being a force is them being able to tame down their quarterback to limit the mistakes. And by the same token, Dallas has become a lot more multiple in their attack. Trying to figure out that 2 tight end, 3 wide receiver offense. Steven has gotten a grasp of how to deploy that more efficiently. And in these last couple of weeks, he's been able to get the tight ends more involved, which in turn kind of open up the field for the receivers to get, make big plays down the field, because defenders are more concerned with stopping those tight ends now. And at the same time, he also got that running back, that little number 22. That running back guy, he's getting involved both in the receiving game and in the running game now. They're taking carries away from synergy, which is good. You never want your quarterback to be a leading rusher for any game, because those are hits. You never know when that next hit is the last hit he'll take for that game, if you understand what I'm saying. So, and Steven knows defense. His defense is always going to be, strong and going to keep it in ball games. So that's what I saw from there. So San Antonio, you got to find a way to limit Langdon's mistakes. If that means run the ball more and make the game shorter, then that's what you got to do. But whenever he has to air it out too often, that's when the mistakes occur there. So that's what I would say about that game.
Yeah, German and the offense for San Antonio on the ground really was working well. 173 yards, 9.6 per carry for 2 touchdowns, and that's really where they found pay dirt. Cam, I'm sure you got a chance to look at this game. Greg Corky, Daley Holder, and Cole Train, they got to get more out of the passing game. Do you think there's any way that they can help Langdon kind of limit those mistakes like Mighty was talking about, or do you think this game against Dallas was more of a example of how Troy LaShaw and Jace Jefferson in the defensive backfield for the Roughnecks are kind of 2 of the best safety pairings we've ever seen in SFL history?
Well, I think San Antonio is 0-4 for a couple of reasons. The first reason is that Joey Langdon has 14 interceptions. The only quarterback that has more is Wavy, but Wavy also leads the league in touchdowns. So, right. So I think I'll take Wavy's 15 picks over Langdon's 14. But the biggest problem I see with San Antonio, and obviously, the credit goes to Dallas for going in there, taking care of business, winning 2 in a row. I do think that LaShaw and Jefferson, I can't think of a better safety combo in league history, better than that group. But, Langdon has thrown 14 picks, and Greg Corky, the team's number 2 wide receiver, has 10 catches in 4 games. That's unacceptable if I'm San Antonio. You can't win ball games. Like Greg Corky is 32nd in the league in receiving yards. Like he's on the last page of 60 players in receptions. You're just not going to win a ton of games like that. San Antonio is I kind of look at him a little bit like Alaska Light right now. The first couple of weeks, Alaska was really struggling with getting the passing game going, but had a strong rushing attack. It's kind of where San Antonio is right now. They got to get Greg Corky moving. They got to get everyone involved in the offense, and I think Dallas is really starting to carve out a little hole for themselves of hey, we're getting more familiar with our offense now, and we're getting a better grasp on it, and they think they're gonna be okay. So, but man, San Antonio, man, you got to get Corky the ball.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. On the stat sheet, both teams had 22 first downs. San Antonio was actually better on 3rd down, but Dallas kind of controlled the ball more often, and those turnovers are really what killed the Vaqueros. James, did you have a chance to watch this game? And if so, is there anything you want to add to the conversation?
Yeah, I did. And the biggest thing that I took away from the game, one, anytime you go into the 4th quarter and the score's 27-10, and you've stacked up several turnovers, it's going to be really hard to come back. And we did see them put up 10 points in the 4th quarter, but that was against second string players. And so to me, I wonder, how strong their playbook actually is. And I was the biggest Vaqueros fan in the first couple weeks, but now that we've seen their playbook kind of unfold throughout the season, we're starting to see them become a little more predictable, thus leading to more turnovers. Teams are starting to figure it out. So, I think the coach and the owners over there, they've got to sit down and they've got to figure out how to be more creative, got to figure out a way to get the ball into their playmakers' hands. And so if they can't do that, a lot of these games are going to end up being like this. They're going to trail in the fourth quarter. They're going to have to wing it, and it's going to lead to more turnovers. So
awesome. Let's move again to another game. Oklahoma City was in Sioux Falls taking on the Sparrows 17-27. Oklahoma City fell, and the Sparrows add a win to their record, and mostly, in my opinion at least, on the legs of Kevin Clancy, who ran for 142 yards on 21 carries and a touchdown. That's 6.8 yards per carry, as well as had 5 receptions for 7.4 yards a catch. They had 2 throwing touchdowns and 2 picks from Tyree. And on the Oklahoma City side, 240 yards for Red Feather, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. And Brewski, 5.2 yards a carry, 115 yards. Cam, we saw Oklahoma City start off really strong. The Renegades were kind of, looking like a team to be reckoned with this season, going 2-0 right out of the gate. And to this point in their last 2 games, they've kind of fallen flat on their face. Was this just Sioux Falls playing better than them? Because it looks to me like the stat sheet's pretty close across the board, except for the third quarter. What did Oklahoma City do wrong here this week?
I don't know. I think momentum played a big part. They had I believe they had a field goal blocked. They gave up a touchdown at the end of the first half and at the beginning of the second half. And, honestly, what has happened to Tiberius Bovine? Where did he go? The first 2 weeks, albeit against 2 teams that haven't won a game yet, but Tiberius Bovine was all over the field. He was totally dominant, especially against San Antonio, just completely dominant. And it took the whole league by notice, and everyone was just like, wow. This is the team, I believe it was Mighty, or I can't remember who said it, but this is the Oklahoma City team I've been waiting for. And they've just sort of fallen right back into their mid-season rut that has plagued this team for years. So it's tough, in my view, to put a finger on it. I think that Sioux Falls is playing some better ball. They're cleaning up some of the mess from earlier in the season, and I think that they were definitely a worthy opponent, and for whatever reason, Oklahoma City never plays very well up there. And at some point, the Renegades are going to have to step up and beat, a team that has experience and playoff exposure under their belt. It's one thing at the beginning of the season, you beat San Antonio and Vancouver, and everyone's just like, wow, they're 2-0. But now, when you look at who they've beaten, their combined opponents are 0-8 in games they've won, and it just really doesn't look that impressive. They're going to have to make a statement at some point, or they're going to be back in the Western Conference cellar again. Maybe that's this week against Mexico City. Or if not Mexico City, better be soon.
Yeah, boy, that would be a stand to beat Mexico City. The Aztecs are playing some great football down south of the border. Mighty, we'll go to you. What did you think of the Renegades and Sparrows game as it affects the Western Conference, and the Sparrows climb a little bit in the standings?
At least for this past game, I want to speak about the game they had against Dallas, because that was just Dallas finding their offense and OKC not being ready. This past game here is like 1 or 2 bounces, man. That's all it took. It was one bounce the wrong way, a block field goal here, a missed tackle there, and that was basically the difference in the game. So because Red Feather's been, he's been halfway decent this year. He hasn't really turned the ball over like we've known him to do. Brewski, that made him useless doing him right, because he's still doing what he does. And So offensively, they're still putting up, halfway decent numbers. Billy Joe's back there doing Billy Joe things. Their defense hasn't really just, broken all completely. It's just a bad bounce here and a bad bounce there, maybe a blown coverage here. It's nothing drastic, but it's the details. Like James Richards was speaking of, before the show, is the details that sometimes you miss out on, or sometimes that happen mid-game that you didn't foresee coming, and next thing you know, you've lost 2 in a row. So hopefully they're able to do their due diligence this week and take care of the details and put up a heck of a ball game against Mexico City.
James, we'll swing it to you. What did you think about the Renegades and the Sparrows game? And do you think the Renegades will be able to bounce back? I mean, they got a tough game against Mexico City, like we were talking about. What did you think?
Well, I think, the game against Mexico City, that's not one that anybody would look forward to going into. That's not an easy team to stop, and so far nobody's done it. So good luck on that front, and Godspeed. As far as this game goes, hats off to Sioux Falls. They do what they do every year. They kind of have their highs, have their lows, but at the end of the day, they still put up a lot of yards and they put up a lot of points. And this week they put up more points. If you're Oklahoma City, I'll piggyback off of what Mighty was saying. It's the details. And as soon as they figure out the little twist, the turn, pinch here, don't pinch there, or, get an out route here. It's all about the number game that they have to figure out with their playbooks and their build. We're seeing a 2 tight end system here that's slightly different than the other 2 tight end systems that we see that are more receiver centric in the league. So these guys have a little bit of an uphill challenge because their tight ends aren't as athletic as the other tight ends in the league. So for them to pull off this system, they've got to try something a little different. They got to tweak it a little more. But I wouldn't be too concerned if I was Oklahoma City. Yeah, you've lost 2. Okay, great. Just keep your nose to the grind and keep plugging away. For Sioux Falls, I think they've got to figure out how to kind of shore up the defense, because right now they have a negative 27 in their net points. And so I think once Sioux Falls kind of locks down the defense, that's a team that could really be dangerous too.
Yeah, both teams, I think, have the potential to bounce back and be strong. And it's a tight race in the Western Conference, and really still plenty of games left, as Mighty was telling me earlier. Plenty of games left to kind of decide who makes the playoffs fold. One team that's having no struggle in terms of finding wins is Houston. They welcomed Vancouver to town this week and defeated them 31-20. Vancouver's offense got moving a little bit, but at the end of the day was no match for the Hyenas, who are playing some great football. We'll start with you, James. What did you think about this game, and do you think that Vancouver is looking better than they did? I mean, obviously their offense is playing better, but giving up to 31 to Houston is never a good thing for your team. What did you think about the game overall?
Yeah, so at the beginning of the year, when we were breaking down, how I felt about Vancouver, I wasn't worried about the offensive side of the ball. And, with stats, maybe I should have been. With 47 points forwarded this season and they gave up 119, that was kind of my prediction. But I thought they'd be able to score more. And so the fact that this week, Tom Pepper played a fairly clean game, you have to like what you see there. They need to figure out how to get the ball to their wide receivers. They're not getting them. If we're in St. Louis, if our generics are getting the ball and putting up comparable stats, something's wrong. So I think a few tweaks of, here and there, and that's what this game comes down to, is literally a few tweaks here and a few tweaks there and just clicking at the right times. I think Vancouver can get hot. They definitely have the offensive pieces, but it comes down to defense. Like, you got to stop people too. So I think this game specifically, Houston's not an easy team to prepare for. They put up points and they play great defense. That's kind of been their MO for the last couple of years. So a valiant effort by, yourself and your team and your franchise. It's just, that's not the easiest matchup to go into.
Yeah, agreed. Mighty, I know we had talked last week on the podcast, and I said that, I thought, we had something for Houston. I thought we had a little bit more offense, and I think we did that. We did bring some more offense to the table. What did you think in watching what we put together, and how do you think Houston has been playing this season? I mean, so far off to one of the better starts that they've ever had. Do you think they'll be able to keep that up, and are they a contender for the Western Conference spot in the championship game, do you think?
They're definitely a contender. Houston's defense has been on point this season, and that's what has afforded their quarterback. Not had he hasn't had to do anything drastic or superhuman to kind of dig him out of ridiculous holes to win the ball game. So he's been able to just manage the game, take what the defense gives. If he doesn't like it, check it down. It's okay. We could punt. Our defense will get us the ball back, and we don't have to play uphill. The funny thing is, though, as good as Houston is, they haven't even gotten their William Choice the ball. Like, they've thrown him the ball, so he's been pretty good as a receiver. But toting the rock, he hasn't really started really doing damage that way. Once they figure out how to use him in the running game, paired with that defense, man, nobody's gonna want any part of Houston. And on the Vancouver side of things, like I was telling you, Andy, prior to the show, the Legion have to find a way to get Ivan Sanchez the Rock and get him to be productive with the Rock. Averaging 3 yards and change ain't gonna cut it, especially if you're putting Tom Pepper in terrible situations, 3rd and 6, 3rd and 10, having to, those are the holes that you don't want to be in, having to face. Because prior to this game, they were averaging 7 points a game. Ivan got to be able to break one or two loose a game to kind of relieve the pressure off Tom Pepper to have to win ball games for them. Just manage the game, Tom. You ain't got to do nothing crazy. Get the ball to BK. Heck, get the ball to Ivan in the flat. Let him do his damage over there. But, don't throw that thing in triple coverage. That guy's not open. Those aren't your teammates kind of thing. So, and defensively, I think Vancouver's D will be all right. It's a matter of, because their offense has struggled so much, they've been on the field a ton. And you could only, be on the field so much before you relent and give something up. So if they get their offense to be more, I guess, even average, if they get the offense to average, level, their defense will be that much better for it because they'll be more rested when they get on the field and therefore making it more effective.
Fair play. We'll swing it to Cam real quick. Talk to me a little bit about Houston, Cam, and what DeMond has put together in terms of, they lost quite a few guys. They lost Corky, and the team has been playing really good, even without Greg. And that's a lot of credit to DeMond, who's been putting in a lot of work, I would assume. Talk to me a little bit about how Houston's season has gone.
Yeah, I think Houston is, when you look across the league, they are the team of ultimate balance. I think if you were to ask someone, hey, who's the most balanced team in the league? Who does every single thing well? Offense, defense, everywhere across the board. Houston is probably the most complete answer. I say that because Mexico City's defense has good components, good pieces, but their offense is definitely a lot better than their defense is right now. And in my view, I think Houston evenly has just as good of an offense as their defense and vice versa, which makes them a very challenging team to get a win on. And their 31-20 victory over Vancouver, people would say, well, they didn't blow Vancouver out of the water, or they didn't put them away as quickly as they should have. And people will try to make excuses, but these are the types of games that Houston is going to continue to have this year. They beat Sioux Falls by 6. They beat Dallas by 5. They kind of pulled away from San Antonio and pulled away from Vancouver. But in none of those 4 games have we ever looked at Houston and said, they got lucky, or they weren't the better team on the field that day. No, right. All 4 of those games, they have definitely been the better team on the field. So I think they're just one of those squads, man. They're not going to win 45-0. They're just going to win ball games. So I I'm really interested to see Sioux Falls this week. You know, they got beat at their house against Houston in week 1. That was a big win for the Hyenas. I'm sure Sioux Falls is pretty salty. They want to make a statement. They want to make a splash. And Houston over the last 2 weeks playing a couple of teams that haven't been able to get their first win yet. You know, 4 weeks in a row, they've played a team that hasn't won a game this season. You know, right. They're playing an offer. For the first time this year, they're not playing an offer when they match up with their opponents. So I'm really interested to see how they come out and if Sioux Falls can land a big first punch.
Yeah, we talked about how Houston could be one of those big contenders in the Western Conference for the championship spot. But another team that's kind of blowing the doors off the Western Conference and just taking things, pun intended, by storm, are the Aztecs. Mexico City welcomed the Storm to Mexico this week and kind of crushed them, 42-27. Alaska got a lot of points, I would say a lot, on the Mexico City defense, but wasn't able to put the win together. Ron Cochran, 3 interceptions, 274 yards and 2 touchdowns on 44 throws. Ash Odom, 184 yards, 6.1 was the average per carry with a touchdown to boot. And then you go to the Mexico City side, Matt Wilson, 243 yards, 3 touchdowns, and no interceptions, a clean sheet for the Bronze Bomber. And then Bentley, he was there too, 211 yards, 8.8 is the average, with 3 touchdowns on the Alaska defense as they were unable to keep him out. And then Ryan Moxon had 2 touchdowns himself. Montague had 1. Cam, have you ever seen a team like Mexico City start off this strong in and play so well in the running game?
No. Stop Ray Bentley. Somebody. Because he's making me look like a clown on the air when I don't know how to talk. It's my job to know how to talk. And when Ray Bentley runs like he did on Sunday night, he's just making me look like a fool. So Someone stop that man. I mean, he is, in my mind, I know Jay Calvin Kim's having a great season. I've seen both of them. I'm going to get to call my first Tallahassee game this week, so I'll see how I feel after that when they play Atlanta. But for right now, no question in my mind, hands down, even over Koma Kaleka, Ray Bentley's the MVP because he literally is unstoppable right now. There's not a team in the league that is proven that they can stop him, and now it's up to Oklahoma City to try to do just that this week. And I'm just glad I'm not a defender in the Western Conference because you couldn't pay me enough to try to tackle that guy right now.
Yeah, he's in theory killing it, and you know, Ash Odom had a pretty good game in this one. For his credit, you know, 184 yards, 6.1 per carry with a touchdown. I'd take that any day. And I'm sure Mighty will agree that that's a pretty good performance from him. But, you know, when you compare him to a guy like Bentley and how he's been playing this season for Ramos Lynn and the Aztecs, it's just, you know, holding a candle in the wind. James, did you get a chance to check out this game? And if so, what did you think not only of Bentley, but the passing attack? I mean, Moxon, 2 touchdowns from the tight end position. I know you got Swaim there in St. Louis. Do you like what Mexico City's doing with Moxon?
Yeah, I mean, if you don't like what Mexico City's doing in general, like, you're crazy, right? Like, this is the type of team that everybody wishes they had. You know, they're putting up a ton of points. They're shutting people down on defense. You know, Mighty's not an easy opponent to go up against, and he's definitely like one of the stronger defensive minds in the league. So to do what they did to Mighty's team, you're just like, wow, like this team is for real. You know, there was a couple times early on in the season where we're like, well, we don't know if Mexico City has the momentum because we're thinking about how Mexico City was last year. Well, I think they've proven with the teams they've played against that they are for real, and this is a very scary build and a very scary team. The fact that they're able to throw the ball as well as they do and run the ball as well as they do, it's complete. I guess I don't want to say like Shabazz synergy, but complete synergy. The fact that they can run the ball 24 times, pass the ball 22 times. Like that's the closest thing to balance that you're going to get. And then they continue to kill people. They put up a ton of yards. They put up a ton of points. I think if Alaska's quarterback didn't throw 3 picks, this is a different ball game. It's a little closer. But I think if you're Mighty, you have to be happy with the offensive production, because this is like one of the top defenses in the league, and you put up 450 yards against them. So, I think it was a strong showing for both teams. I just think Mexico City is on a different level right now, and there's nothing to be ashamed about when you go in and have a game like that.
Yeah, fair points. Mighty, obviously it was your team going in, but you said you tried a little something to stop Bentley a little bit, and it didn't work too much. Do you think that he's just one of those players that it's going to be tough to stop, or do you think there's something out there that can stop Bentley and Mexico City's kind of offensive just firepower?
Well, not really stop, more like slow down, because at this point he's like a runaway freight train. You get in front of it, you feel like it. You ain't gonna be feeling much of anything when you're done. So that's not something I'd recommend. So yeah, just more like slow down than stop. And
right.
That failed miserably. So, and for the first time in a long time, I feel like I failed the team as a coordinator, because it's like, guys, we come in, and the offense finally, though there were turnovers, I could live with turnovers that aren't backbreaking. The defense just let us down, and it was just, maddening, because as a defensive coordinator, especially, I pride myself never. You can have big plays, but you can't have big plays with the touchdown accompanying it. If you score a touchdown 4 plays later, I don't like it, but I can live with it. But when you get the big play and the touchdown the same play, it's like, oh my gosh, that happened 4 times in that game. And that's basically all it did. That's basically all she wrote. And that was the difference in the game. If on those 4 plays we're able to at least, make a tackle and then force them to run more plays, who knows what happens on those plays? Maybe Big Sexy gets back there, gets a strip sack, or hits Wilson on a 3rd down, and then they get a field goal instead of getting a touchdown, and it makes the game different. So, but that didn't occur. Mexico City came with the game plan. They attacked our secondary in areas where we're not as strong as we like to be, and and they fed their workhorse, and he worked his horse. And that was all she wrote from it. So hopefully we learn from it. It's a long season, as I keep preaching to everybody, both the ones that are can't lose and those that are struggling to win right now. It's a long season, so we're just gonna lick our wounds, learn from it, and hopefully be better from it in the long run.
Yeah, and now we're getting into the nitty-gritty here. Chicago and Baltimore. Shan Varner took the Wildcats after the missed field goal into the Crab Stadium, Old Bay, and lost 27-10. And this was one I at least didn't see coming. I thought Chicago would have a bounce-back game, and in all honesty, kind of beat up on Baltimore. Cam, I know we had talked about in the presentation meeting, worrying that this could potentially be one of those blowout games with how Baltimore had been playing up to this point. But it was not so. Baltimore came out and shocked me a little bit and, kind of beat up on Shan's team a little bit, a 17-point victory for the Crabs. What do you think, is kind of the tale for Chicago here? And is this, is the last 2 games kind of more real what we've seen of Chicago, or were the first 2 games really, kind of Chicago's basis? Are they going to be able to bounce back and get more wins? Or is it one of those scenarios where Shan might have to kind of help lead the team back into the playoffs near the end of the season?
I think Chicago's okay. They were up 28-9 on Cleveland. They handled St. Louis. They went on the road, took on the best team in the East, took them all the way to overtime, should have won it, didn't. Oh, well, I think maybe the loss lingered on for them a little bit. They came out flat in Baltimore. They're kind of missing home now at this point. They lost a devastating game on the road. Now they got to go to another hostile environment. This week they come back home. They have all the tangibles to bounce back. And I really think this game is more about what Baltimore is doing right now that they're off of their season 8 kick where they just didn't look like themselves. And this is the biggest stat for me for Baltimore. Matt South has thrown 166 times. That's 4th most in the league. He has just 5 interceptions, which is 2nd least in the league. Matt South is not, he's 5th in the league in passing. He only has 7 passing touchdowns, but he's really controlling the game. I'm not even going to call him a game manager because I'm not trying to disrespect right now. He is controlling the game, and with Sonzo Robinson giving him some help in the backfield, he's not a top flight running back in this league right now with Odom, Walsh, Kim, Bentley, those type of names, but he's doing enough. And I think Baltimore has sort of found that rhythm again. I think this game was all about watching a really strong Baltimore Crabs performance that we know that they can put up. I think Chicago will be fine. That was not their best performance. They were a little flat. But, it's another week for them. For Baltimore, this team is just playing really well.
Yeah, let's pass it to James. James, what did you think about the matchup? And were you a little surprised to see Chicago, I'll say stumble. I think they stumbled here.
I don't know if they've stumbled. I think what Cam said, there was a hangover effect. I think that's definitely applicable. It was a high-scoring game between them and Tallahassee. And then, you think, wow, I took Tallahassee to the brink. Maybe I don't need to make too many tweaks here. Well, TJ's here, having not the greatest season, but he's definitely like right there. Like they definitely are trending in the right direction. They had the 2 early losses, but TJ's a gamer, and if you don't make enough adjustments against TJ, like this is what you can expect. And I'm not saying Shan didn't, because I think Shan's one of the brighter minds in the league. It was just, if I had the performance I had against Tallahassee, and Tallahassee's the best team in our conference, then I think like, okay, well, maybe I don't need to make too many adjustments if I'm playing this well. And then, Sonzo Robinson, I coached it in Baltimore last year, and I tell you, that is not the same Sonzo Robinson that we used last year. This is a completely different guy, and he is competing with the top backs in the league. Anytime you rush for over 200 yards, that's a big deal, and that's huge production out of the backfield that Baltimore is just not used to getting. Like they weren't used to getting it last year, but they're getting it now this year, and they're starting to do it even more. They're a more balanced offense. They're throwing the ball 27 times. They ran the ball 26 times. That's a really good balance. And if they can continue to get that kind of production and keep that balance, it's going to be really hard to stop them. And so it'll just come down to, how their tweaks on defense shake up week to week.
Yeah, Mighty, you're another product of that TJ, regime, as well as James. What did you think about how the Crabs are playing? And do you think this is a streak of wins that they can keep going?
I don't know whether it's a streak or not. I will say that it looked like Chicago, as the game wore on, they weren't ready for Sonzo getting the rock as often, or they weren't expecting him to be as effective as he was going to be on the ground. And that was basically the difference in the game. His 200 yards just kept the sticks, kept Baltimore ahead of the sticks, where Matt South didn't have to be superhuman to kind of, manage the game, and that allowed their defense to be rested. And when they got on the field, the defense was ridiculously effective. And that's basically all she wrote. So Sonzo, is definitely the MVP of that game. And let's see if Baltimore can continue to, feed him and let him be as effective and as dangerous as a weapon as he can be.
Last game of the week, Queen City and Atlanta, and I have no words. I still am very confused with exactly how this game ended. I've watched it a few times, and my heart goes out to Mark and Atlanta, because they were, a group running up the field and spiking the ball away from overtime and quite possibly winning this game at home against Queen City. Instead, they fell 27-24. Mighty, we'll start with you. Talk to me a little bit about the matchup. I mean, obviously it was a grudge match back and forth. Caswell did not play well. No touchdowns, 2 picks for him. Kyle Walsh played well, though, 187 yards, 6.7 yards a carry, and 3 touchdowns for him. On the other side of the ball, Mandel had a 1 touchdown and a clean sheet, no interceptions. BDG Hollywood was doing his thing, 192 yards and 1 rushing touchdown. All the stats kind of trend towards Atlanta for me, and they just couldn't come out on top. What did you think of the game and how this one ended up?
What a bizarre ending to a game. It felt a lot like that, forget, was it the 06, 07 when, Philadelphia forgot that overtime existed, and then they don't forget that overtime has an ending. And it's like, what, there's an ending? I thought it was just weird the way that game ended. Like Atlanta, it felt like Atlanta felt like, oh, we got more time. There's a 5th quarter.
Right.
No, not if the game's not tied. There is no 5th quarter. So, but they came to play, though. BDG Hollywood, first touch from scrimmage. I think he went like 75 or 80. I'm like, wow, okay. Atlanta came with that 5. Let's see if Queen City can answer. And bam, Queen City answered. And let's see if Atlanta can. Bam, Atlanta answered. Like, the game was a great game to watch. The ebb and flow of that game was awesome. But it's just that brain fart kind of soured the game. Like, this game shouldn't end this way.
Right.
The victor should have been decided with a play, not with a non-play.
Right.
So, that being said, that knocked Atlanta off the ranks of the unbeaten. I know that's not the way you'd want to have your first L, but I'm pretty sure that Atlanta's like, you know what? We don't like this 3-1, but we'll take it, and hopefully we'll be able to tweak some things so we're not caught with our pants down or in that same situation again.
Yeah, we talked about how the Chicago game, when they missed the field goal, how bizarre that was to be that close and miss it in overtime to win the game. This, I think, might have topped it for me because, obviously not a gimme from where they were on the field, but I think they were close enough to send that game to overtime. James, you're in the Eastern Conference. What's in the Kool-Aid, man? What's with all these weird endings?
Yeah, I don't know. Because I haven't had any bizarre ones yet. We gotta score enough points to get those bizarre endings. No, for me, I think both of these teams put on a good show. Atlanta, obviously figured out what they needed to change in order to get BDG back on track, after they played us. Because I don't know if you guys remember that. We kind of shut Atlanta down for the most part. And so, we kind of showed the blueprint, and then Atlanta said, wait, we can make a few changes here and get back on track. So, I think if you look at this game, Queen City's the champs. Their owner is one of the most winningest owners in SFL history. So for them to lose to these guys, it's not and to lose in the fashion they did, because they did control the ball. They did have less turnovers. They did have more yards. I'm not disappointed if I'm Atlanta. I'd be a little concerned that, they rely on BDG to have huge plays, week in and week out. And if he doesn't, then they kind of struggle a little bit. But I think this game they showed, hey, we can throw in a few more wrinkles and get them going. So they just got to find that consistency. But once they find that consistency, Atlanta's going to be a really dangerous team. And then for Queen City, it's just, keep to the status quo. I think every year Queen City wins some, they lose some, and then when playoff times roll around, they're the 4-time champs. And so, Queen City's going to be one of those weird stories all year, just because, if Walsh has a bad day, Queen City's going to have a bad day. If he has a great day, they're going to have a great day. And so it just depends the wrinkles they put in to overcome a bad Walsh day, if it actually ever happens again. And, this week he didn't have a bad week and they played really well. So we'll see. It's to be determined, I guess.
Cam, I think with the ending that happened and with the way that Atlanta, in my opinion, statistically outplayed Queen City, you think this one's circled for Week 10 on a lot of people's sheets?
Yeah, I bet. Because in my view, Atlanta earned more respect, I think, from the league than they earned in any of their 3 previous wins. I think that the way that they played Queen City, the way that every time Queen City punched, they punched back, I think they gained a lot of people's respect. And now the concern is a similar one that Chicago dealt with. Chicago loses in a bizarre game to a top opponent that Chicago was amped up for. They were hyped. They were the underdog to Tallahassee. They had them. It didn't happen. The next week, they fall flat. They don't play very well. Well, here Atlanta is. They're an underdog against a top flight opponent. They're hyped. They're ready. They're in the game. They coulda and shoulda won the game. This is their opportunity, and then it doesn't happen. Now they turn around. They're going on primetime game of the week against Tallahassee. They're hosting them. What are they going to do? What's going to happen? And I can just see the team getting that first down, 25-yard line, clock's ticking away. Mark Chisholm's high-fiving his guys on the sideline. Hey, we got this. Call timeout, 3 seconds to go. Kick the game-time field goal. We're going to overtime, baby. And in about 4 seconds, he looks at the official and he says, timeout. And the official looks at him. He goes, you don't have any. And he goes, what? And then it hits 0. And then that's the end of the game. And it's like that. That's how I saw that playing out on the sidelines, and it's devastating. But Atlanta played so well that as long as they don't let it affect them and let it bleed into the next week, they're going to give Tallahassee a run for their money.
Yeah, that will be quite a matchup. So with all the games out of the way, we'll move and run through the power rankings here. Vancouver still sits at 16. St. Louis still at 15. San Antonio still at 14. Carolina still at 13. The winless teams stay put in the bottom 4. Cleveland is at 12, not moving there. Oklahoma City falls 4 spots to 11th. Alaska drops 2 spots to 10th. Chicago drops 4 spots to 9th. Dallas moves 2 spots up to 8th. Baltimore is moving 4 spots up after beating Chicago to 7th. Sioux Falls is up 3 spots to 6th. Atlanta is down 1 spot to 5, but only because of the direct battle with Queen City, who is moving up 2 spots to 4th. Houston is in 3rd. They do not move. Tallahassee, however, moves down 1 spot to 2nd as Mexico City moves up to 1st. So this week, not too much movement, but big moves when it mattered. I think I'm kind of on the Mexico City train. I think they deserve to be number 1. That Chicago game might play into how people are voting to put Tallahassee in that 2nd spot. Cam, we'll start with you. Obviously, great work to all the staff on the website in making sure that the power rankings are timely and have a write-up for each team. What did you think about the way that they shifted this week?
Yeah, that's all Andrew Rastelli, getting those beat writers going, editing all that and making all those adjustments. So he's doing a wonderful job with that midweek project. Once he's done putting in all those stats, man, that guy is just such a huge blessing to our organization. I think these ratings, while I sit there and I shake my head and I say, I don't think Chicago's the 9th best team in the league, or I don't think Cleveland's the 12th best team, meaning that they should be higher. There's really no argument to put them higher in any way, just because of the way that the other teams have played. I think that Queen City being 4, they got blown out by Tallahassee. Atlanta has Tallahassee coming up this week. I'd be interested to see if Atlanta plays Tallahassee a lot closer than Queen City did. Do the voters forgive Atlanta's bizarre loss to Queen City and move them ahead? I think that'll be interesting. How does Mexico City handle Oklahoma City, and how does Houston handle Sioux Falls? Those are 2 teams, both with 2-2 records, that those undefeated teams are playing. If one plays better than the other, is Houston now the team to be considered the top in the West, or does Mexico City continue to sort of step on the throat of everybody? So I think that the more interesting shakeups will come after week 5 when some of those questions get answered. But for now, I think all these ratings make pretty good sense because a lot of what week 5 showed us was kind of what we already knew. There weren't a lot of big shockers in week 5, at least in my view, just going by stats and overall records coming into the week. There was no winless team pulling an upset over, a team over 500, anything like that. So everybody sort of held firm, and the teams that were above 500 and suffered disappointing losses, they got cut down a peg.
James, we'll swing it to you then. Anything surprise you on here? I think Queen City and moving over Atlanta is kind of an obvious move. Chicago down to 9 was the one thing I looked at that might have surprised me a little bit with the way that they fell. Does anything on the list surprise you, James?
For me, I think everybody's slotted appropriately. I'm not surprised that Chicago moved down to 9. As right now, I would have Alaska higher than Chicago. I think they're the better team. And so even though Alaska lost this week, they put up a heck of a showing against, Mexico City. So that's the only surprise for me. Right now, to me, it's the top 4 teams and then everybody else is chasing them. And really, it's the top 2 teams and everybody else is chasing them. I think Houston has an argument. I think Queen City, has an argument as the defending champs. But I really think these top 4 teams are the best teams in the league. And I think, come playoff time, these will be the 4 teams that are standing tall. So,
Mighty, you just mentioned Alaska maybe moving over Chicago, as well as that the top, 4 teams might be the ones that we see in the conference championships. Do you see it that way, or do you think a team in groups 5 through 16 will be able to burst through that top 4?
I preach long season. Last season at this time, Mexico City was on their way to 0-5. Queen City was struggling to win games. I believe at this point last season, we were 2-2 as well. And there were teams that had better records than all 3 of us. And we still wind up in the dance some way, somehow. So this is a long season. I don't believe that the standings will remain as they are. There are surprises laying ahead for some folk. Some teams that have new ownership and new coaches are, still trying to figure things out. And because we play in a league that allows for growth, because as you get better on understanding, how to build the playbook and how to marry the playbook with your build and your players' abilities, there's a chance. Carolina got hot late, got into the dance for the first time last season. 5-7 got him in. So, the top 4 might look the way it looks now. Who's to say it'll remain that way with, the competitive juices of the teams that are behind them, once that gets to going. And, competition is all about, one team, scheme, players going against another team, scheme, players. And then, who's to say ball bounces one way or another in the game, and then things change quickly. So in a matter of 2 weeks, the league could be flipped on its head. So who knows? So no, I do not think it will remain this way. And if I got to shorten it up, no, I don't think it'll remain this way.
Yeah.
I do believe there'll be 1 or 2 dark horses that rise to the top. So who they are, I don't know, but I do believe that'll happen.
I'm with you, Mighty. I think there's a lot of season left, and we're going to see some shifting. The only way to get to that shifting is to look at the schedule for the upcoming week. There it is. Sioux Falls will head to Houston, as well as Dallas will head to Alaska simultaneously on YouTube. Cam, you and me have been trying to make this happen for a while. You specifically, once I told you that I had seen it, I know you were kind of amazed that someone got it working on YouTube, 2 games at once with the same chat. How hyped are you for those 2 games to go on at the same time with me and Colin on the calls?
We're really excited to introduce this feature. I have a feeling that I'm going to be making a lot of public appearances, introducing a lot of fun new things happening in the SFL here in the coming weeks and months. But this is something, as you mentioned, that we've been excited about for a long time in trying to implement. It's something that long term is going to help the SFL grow and thrive. I mean, this is going to be some NFL Sunday Ticket type stuff where when we try to do, or when we did a red zone a season ago, and we thought, that was going to be the future of our league, and everyone was like, no, we love the red zone, but we love watching our full games more. Well, this is like the perfect marriage. It's a new and improved rabbit type format. It's going to be long term a tremendous addition to the league, and this week is sort of its soft launch. So we can't wait to kick off week 5 with that going on and get it all fired up. And I'm happy that Colin is, I think hopefully we can get him in the intro soon with the rest of the commentators with a call on live called games. So it's good to see him jumping on board and pulling up his boots or bootstraps or whatever the expression is.
Yeah, Colin's been killing it. I'm actually kind of upset that the game's at the same time and I'll miss out on hearing him go. Those two games are both going to be great ones, both good battles in the East. And then on Sunday on Rabbit, Baltimore will head to Cleveland, Queen City at St. Louis, Mexico City at Oklahoma City. And then Sunday night, Curtis will have San Antonio at Vancouver. Monday, Cam will have the call 7 Central, 8 Eastern, Tallahassee at Atlanta. And then on Tuesday, Eric will have the call of Carolina at Chicago with a special announcement from Cam that is going to be pretty important. So we're trying to get as many people to that game as we can. Mighty, let's start with you. Do any games on the schedule stand out to you specifically? And if so, which ones and why?
This is the week of rematches. This is week 1 redux. You know what I'm saying? Like we get to face off against Dallas again, but this time they get to come to the cold tundra of the eye in Alaska. You know what I'm saying? And then James Richards is like, oh, Queen City, I remember what y'all did to us week 1. I wasn't ready then. I'm ready now. Y'all come to okay. This is what I'm liking. I'm liking this. Okay, I'm sorry, I got a little excited there looking at it.
That's right, it happens.
Like James, for you, my good sir, I'm wearing the skirt. I got the pom-poms on. I'm like, James Richards, you could do it. You know what I'm saying? Shields up. Shields up.
Shields up, baby.
That is not an image I wanted in my head.
What happened? What happened there? What's the matter?
Shirts up? Is that
the skirts and the pom-poms?
Come on now, shields up, baby. You better recognize.
I mean, it is cold in Alaska, so he wouldn't just be in the skirt.
No. Not. I did say skirt, not kilt. Kilt is a whole different.
I think he'd have Under Armour, clothing on.
Yeah,
it's still like 70 degrees out there.
It's a little chilly up here still. A little chilly. So yes, shields up. That's what I got my eyes on. That's what James Richards. He's gonna shock the world.
They definitely ain't scoring 60-something points again. That's mark my words on that.
All right,
that ain't happening.
Is that a promise, Coach?
I'm promising it.
Oh,
and if not, and if they do, with what we saw week 1, if they put up 60 points again,
you'll shave all your hair off.
I mean, that's gonna happen weekly. But they can fire me. I would deserve to be fired.
And you can take that to the bank.
Well, I would hope not. James, besides that St. Louis game, what on the schedule interests you?
Well, I'm just going to give you my hot take. So I got Alaska over Dallas, Houston over Sioux Falls, Baltimore over Cleveland, Mexico City over Oklahoma, St. Louis over Queen City, San Antonio getting the win over Vancouver, Tallahassee over Atlanta, Chicago over Carolina. My stomp of the week is Mexico City. They're going to stomp them. My upset of the week, I think we can get it done against Queen City. There it is.
That's bold. That sure would be an upset with the way that they were playing against Atlanta.
We're going to try, baby. We're going to try.
Well, I wish you the best of luck. Cam, what on the schedule stands out to you? I know we got 2 0-4 teams one of them's gonna get their first franchise victory on Sunday night. The Carolina-Chicago games has storylines just oozing out of it, as we talked about, and then the two battles in the Western Conference. What, as the commissioner, looks interesting to you?
I am bound by Tuesday night. I am bound by it. If you are in the SFL community and you are not there Tuesday night,
well, shave your head.
You should be a part of that St. Louis Week 1 defense, because you are not. Sorry, James, because you are not in it to win it if you are not there on Tuesday night with Eric Vincent calling the game. Not only is it a very interesting matchup where the students go to the teachers' stadium where Carolina's got to try to beat their sensei, right? Like Shan will appreciate that reference. But if sensei is the right, I don't know if he does karate or taekwondo.
Yeah. No, I think it's karate.
Yeah, okay. I took a shot. Hopefully it's correct, and I'm not being.
You mean you took a chop?
Now see, that was sort of the pom thing. That's like strike 2 for the show. But
this just in SFL podcast canned.
No, I think we'll be all right. But no, this I'm telling you, memorable night it will be, and it's going to get a lot of people talking. It doesn't even have to be people inside our organization. People outside of our organization will start talking about this announcement. It's a game changer, and honestly, it's the biggest thing that's ever happened to the SFL. And we've worked on this for quite some time, and we're ready to finally put something out there publicly. So Tuesday night, and it'll be a great game too. Outside of that, I'm really actually of all the games, I'm really interested to see that Baltimore-Cleveland game. Mac Wavy has had his bouts with Baltimore in the past. Those two teams back when Mighty was in Minneapolis. They shared a lot of great memories, a lot of big games, and one in particular was I believe, and anyone can correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't Mac Wavy the quarterback when Minneapolis was the #1 seed and Baltimore came in their house and beat them in overtime, or was that still the Rocco era?
Mighty is muted, so he might be yelling at the microphone. That couldn't help.
That was Rocco.
That was Rocco. Okay, all right.
Yeah, because Mac Wavy won the title his rookie season.
That's right. So I'm really interested to see. Mac's been a heavyweight in the league. TJ's been a heavyweight in the league, and that clash, and Cleveland coming off of 2 wins in a row. Baltimore coming off of 2 wins in a row. Is that right? 2 wins in a row for Baltimore?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So they're both coming in on highs, and someone's going to keep that train rolling. That's going to be a fun game on Rabbit. That's going to be a really good matchup, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how those two teams try to put themselves in the upper echelon of the East. Should
be a blast. This is one of the first weeks that I actually have been excited for a Tuesday night. Rarely do you have a week where you're like, oh yes, Tuesday night. It's Tuesday night. You always have SFL football, but rarely are you at work on Tuesday at 3:00.
Tuesday nights are PTAs and marriage counseling. It's not good football.
But this Tuesday night is, and then the address or the information that we're adding should be good as well. Anything else? Anyone for the good of the order? All right, it doesn't sound like it. I got nothing.
I know. Mighty and James Richards are chomping at the bit at this Tuesday night announcement thing.
I can't wait.
I have no idea of the direction that you're headed, so I will be in attendance. I'll probably have one ear on the broadcast because me and the president got some unfinished business we got to take care of that evening as well. So I will have one ear on the broadcast, trying to see what Cam got up his sleeve, even though he's sleeveless, kind of thing. So
I actually am sleeveless right now.
It's
so
hot.
that's
It's
gonna be
hot,
interesting.
baby.
And tomorrow for tomorrow's game, we're gonna be rocking something special just for Dallas. So can't wait for tomorrow as well.
And by the way, the Roughnecks are wearing their jail cell uniforms again, so that'll be interesting. So, Mighty, does your unfinished business with Destro have anything to do with pom-poms and skirts?
No.
Okay.
That's a shame.
Just thought I'd ask.
Like
I'd love to see Destro in pom-poms and a skirt, man.
That would be interesting.
turning into a mess.
That'd be interesting. The pom-poms and skirts are reserved for the gladiators. That's it.
Well,
Only reserved.
All right.
Well, once he heard the announcement, he might drop the pom-poms, but hopefully he wouldn't drop the skirt. All right, moving on.
I think we're done.
I think that'll call it. We've gone an hour and 17 minutes. For everyone here at SFL Nation, I'm Andy Hamilton. It was fun, and we'll see you guys next week.
Hasta luego.
See y'all.
Peace.